If you had told me just a few months ago that my wedding would be hijacked by my own brother, my blood, my family, I would have laughed. I would have scoffed at the idea. Family was supposed to be the one thing you could rely on. They were supposed to be there for you on your big day, supporting you, standing by your side. But instead, I found out the hard way that not everyone in your life has the same respect for you that you have for them. Not everyone you trust is deserving of that trust. Let me start from the beginning. It was supposed to be a perfect day. You know, the kind of wedding that you dream about as a little kid. The venue was beautiful, the dress was perfect, and my fiancé Jake was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. We had spent months planning, choosing everything down to the smallest details: flowers, food, music. Every decision was made together, and we were both ecstatic about how everything was shaping up. I was ready, ready to say I do, ready to start this next chapter of my life with the man I loved, surrounded by family and friends who had been there for me through everything. But then there was Brendan, my older brother. Brendan and I had always had a complicated relationship. He was the type of guy who was loud, always the center of attention. He could charm anyone in the room, but underneath that charm, there was a darker side to him. He could be selfish, manipulative, and if I'm being honest, sometimes he could be downright toxic. But I loved him. He was my brother, after all. Family comes first, right? The first sign that something was off came the week before the wedding. We were finalizing everything, making sure everything was in place when Brendan called me. "Hey kiddo," he said, his voice all too chipper. "Listen, I know you're stressed with the wedding stuff, but I need a favor." I wasn't sure what to expect. Brendan's favors often came with strings attached. "What is it?" I asked, a little wary. "I need you to let me use the reception for something. It's just a quick thing, won't take long, I promise." "You won't even notice it," he said, sounding almost too convincing. "Just a small surprise for everyone." I felt a knot in my stomach. I couldn't understand why he would need to borrow part of my wedding day. My wedding wasn't supposed to be about anyone else but Jake and me. I had spent months curating every detail. Why would Brendan want to take up space on a day that was supposed to be ours? "I'm not sure, Brendan," I said hesitantly. "This is our wedding. I really don't want to add anything extra." "Oh, come on," he cut in quickly, his tone shifting to one of playful persuasion. "You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Just a quick thing. I promise, no one will even know it's happening." I paused. Part of me felt like I should stand my ground, but the other part of me, the one that had always been the peacekeeper in our family, thought it would just be easier to go along with it. After all, it was Brendan, my brother. What harm could it do? "Fine," I finally relented, trying to brush off the discomfort gnawing at my stomach. "But nothing big, okay? This day is about Jake and me, and I don't want it to get overshadowed." "Of course, you're the best," he said, and I could practically hear his grin on the other end of the phone. Looking back, I should have trusted my gut, but I didn't. I was already overwhelmed with wedding plans and thought it would be easier to appease him than stand firm. I had no idea how wrong I was. The wedding day came faster than I could have anticipated. The excitement, the nerves, the adrenaline, it was all a blur. But as I stood at the altar looking at Jake, I knew that nothing else mattered. Nothing else was as important as the moment we were sharing. Everything had fallen into place until the reception. It started off as any other reception would. The first dance, the speeches, the toasts. Everyone was enjoying themselves, laughing, eating, drinking, and celebrating what was supposed to be a joyous occasion. And then out of nowhere, Brendan took the microphone from the DJ, his face illuminated by the spotlight. Everyone fell silent, and my stomach dropped. I had no idea what he was doing, but I could feel the unease bubbling up inside me. "Hey everyone," he began, his voice booming over the mic. "I know this is a big night for Emma and Jake, but I wanted to take a minute to do something really important." My heart started pounding. What was he doing? Why was he getting up in front of everyone? My eyes darted to Jake, whose expression mirrored mine, confused and concerned. "This is a special night, and I've got something important to announce," Brendan continued, looking around the room. He was playing it up, dragging it out for effect. "So I wanted to take this moment to ask someone very special to me a question." My mind raced. What on earth was happening? This was my wedding day, my moment, and now my brother was taking over. Brendan, what are you doing?" I said, standing up from my seat, my voice laced with disbelief. But he didn't seem to hear me. Instead, he turned to face his ex-girlfriend, Laura, who had been sitting at the back of the room. Laura, who had broken his heart a year ago. Laura, who had caused so much drama in our family. They had a tumultuous relationship, and everyone knew they had broken up under less than ideal circumstances. Brendan's grin grew wider as he knelt in front of Laura, holding a small box in his hand. "Laura, I know things ended on a bad note, but I've realized that I can't live without you. Will you marry me?" The room went silent. My jaw dropped. My head spun. I couldn't breathe. What the hell? I looked over at Jake, who was now standing beside me, his expression just as shocked as mine. I could feel the tension building in the room, and for a moment I thought I might faint. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Brendan had just proposed to his ex at my wedding, on my day. He had turned my celebration into his spectacle, hijacked it in the most public and humiliating way possible. The rage inside me flared up like a wildfire, and I could feel my face turning red. I wanted to scream, to run up to him and knock the microphone out of his hands. How could he do this to me? How could he disrespect me like this, in front of all our family and friends? I took a deep breath and marched over to him, my legs shaking with fury. "Brendan, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. He looked up at me, his face still grinning. "It's just a little surprise, Em. Don't worry about it," he said with a dismissive wave. "Everyone's happy for us," but I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears welled up in my eyes as I took in the absurdity of it all. He was so wrapped up in his own drama that he didn't even realize how much he had just ruined. "No, Brendan," I said, my voice louder now. "This isn't a surprise. This is my day. You're making it all about you, and you've humiliated me in front of everyone. I'm done." The room was still silent as I turned to face the guests, feeling their eyes on me. I could hear whispers behind me, the shock and confusion in the air thick and palpable. Jake stepped forward, his hand on my shoulder, trying to comfort me. "Let's go," he whispered. But before I could leave, my dad stood up from his seat, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Brendan, what the hell is going on here?" he asked, his voice harsh. "Dad, calm down," Brendan said with a grin, as though he had just pulled off some kind of joke. "It's no big deal, just a little fun." "It's not fun, Brendan," I shouted. "This is my wedding, and you've turned it into a joke. This is our day, and you've taken it from me." The tension in the room was palpable, and I could see my family awkwardly shifting in their seats. My dad looked at me, then at Brendan, and his face fell. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, sitting back down, clearly not wanting to get involved. I could feel my heart sinking. I had spent months planning this day. I had put my heart and soul into every detail, every choice. But it was all overshadowed by Brendan's selfish need to steal the spotlight. I turned to Jake, who was now visibly angry, his fists clenched. "Let's just go," I said quietly, taking his hand. "I can't do this anymore." But as we turned to leave, Brendan called out after me, "Come on, Em, don't be so dramatic. This is just how things go." No, this wasn't how things were supposed to go. I wasn't going to let him ruin the rest of my life. I left the reception, and as we walked out into the parking lot, I realized that this moment would define my relationship with my brother. From here on out, I couldn't pretend like everything was okay. I couldn't look at him the same way. He had shown me exactly who he was, and I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive him for it. Leaving the reception was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. There I was, standing on the edge of the room, my heart pounding in my chest as I realized I could no longer stay. I didn't know how much more I could take. I didn't know how to face my family after what Brendan had done. His selfishness, his need to make everything about him. It had drained me in a way I didn't think possible. Jake had been quiet after we walked out, his arm around my shoulders as we made our way to the car. I could tell he was upset, not just for me, but with everything that had happened. He'd been excited to marry me, to start a life together. And now this. He hadn't expected to get caught up in my family's drama. He hadn't expected it to go this way, and neither had I. As we sat in the car, I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. My mind was spinning, filled with images of my brother, smug and confident, pretending that what he had done was no big deal. It had been clear in the way he spoke, the way he acted, that he didn't think there was anything wrong with his actions, but there was. He had crossed a line that I wasn't sure could ever be uncrossed. "Are you okay?" Jake finally asked, breaking the silence. I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know. I don't even know what to feel anymore. It's like my brother doesn't even care about me. He just used my wedding day as some kind of joke, and I let him. I let him ruin everything." Jake squeezed my hand. "Hey, this wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong." "I know," I said, but the words felt hollow. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Everything I thought I knew about my family, everything I thought I knew about my brother, felt like a lie. For so long I had blindly accepted the role of the good daughter, the one who was always there, the one who made sure everything was perfect for everyone else. But this wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close. The ride back to our apartment was long and silent. I could feel the tension between us, the unspoken frustration lingering in the air. We parked the car and sat there for a moment, neither of us ready to face the reality of the situation. My wedding day, my big moment, had been overshadowed by Brendan's selfishness, and I had no idea how to move forward from that. When we finally walked into our apartment, the silence was deafening. I tried to hold it together, to pretend like everything was fine, but it wasn't. I had spent years avoiding confrontation, avoiding the tough conversations, but now I couldn't run from it anymore. I had to confront the truth about my family, about my relationship with Brendan, and most of all about my own role in all of it. Jake sat down on the couch, running a hand through his hair. "I just don't get it," he said, frustration lacing his voice. "Why would he do that? Why would your brother steal your moment like that? I don't know, I said, shaking my head. It's like he's always been about himself, always trying to be the center of attention. But this was too far. This was my wedding day. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about anything else. But he made it about him anyway. Jake sighed, leaning back against the couch. I've never seen anything like it. It's messed up, Emma. But what I don't understand is why you didn't call him out on it right there. You had every right to. You should have told him how wrong it was. I bit my lip, unsure of how to respond. Jake was right. I should have said something. I should have stood up for myself. But in that moment, I had been paralyzed by shock. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what to say. All I could do was watch as my brother hijacked the most important day of my life. I don't know why I didn't, I said, my voice small. I guess I thought I could fix it later. I didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone. I didn't want to make it worse. But now I realize that I should have said something. I should have stood up for myself. Jake reached out and took my hand. You don't have to keep letting him walk all over you, Emma. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to demand respect. This is your life, your wedding, and you deserve to be treated with dignity, not like a prop in someone else's show. I looked at him, the weight of his words sinking in. For so long, I had put everyone else's needs before my own, always trying to make others happy, always trying to keep the peace. But in doing so, I had let people walk all over me. I had let Brendan take advantage of my love and trust, and I had allowed him to steal my happiness, my special day. I know, I whispered. I just don't know how to fix this. Jake smiled softly, pulling me close. You don't have to fix everything, Emma. You just have to take control of your own life. You don't owe anyone anything, especially not Brendan. His words comforted me, but they also made me realize something else. I couldn't keep trying to please everyone. I couldn't keep going along with things just to avoid conflict. I had to start putting myself first, even if it meant confronting my family, even if it meant calling out my brother for his actions. The next day, I decided to take action. I was done being the peacemaker. I was done letting Brendan get away with his selfishness. I needed to confront him, to tell him how wrong he was. But as I picked up the phone, I hesitated. How would he respond? How would he react to me calling him out on his behavior? I dialed his number and waited, the anticipation growing in my chest. When he answered, his voice was as smug as ever. Hey sis, what's up? Brendan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. There was a pause, and I could hear him shift on the other end of the line. About what? Are you still mad about the wedding? Come on, Emma, get over it. It was just a joke. No, I said firmly, my voice growing stronger. It wasn't a joke, Brendan. You hijacked my wedding day. You made it all about you. You proposed to your ex-girlfriend at my reception, and you didn't even think about how that would affect me. You didn't think about me at all. He scoffed. Oh, come on, it was no big deal. People loved it. It was a nice surprise. What's the big deal with me proposing to Laura again? We were always good together. It was a big deal because it wasn't your moment to steal. I shot back, my anger rising. You've always been the center of attention, but this was my day, and you took that away from me. You couldn't let me have one moment where it wasn't about you. He went quiet for a moment, and I could hear him sigh, his tone shifting to something colder. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it. You always act like everything has to be perfect. You need to chill out and let things happen. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me, but I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I'm not chilling out, Brendan. You've crossed a line, and you need to understand that. You don't get to manipulate people for your own gain. I'm not going to be a pawn in your game anymore. He didn't respond at first, and when he finally did, it was with a laugh. You're overreacting, Em. Get over it. And just like that, my brother had dismissed everything. He had turned it into a joke, as if my feelings didn't matter. But I wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. I wasn't going to back down just to keep the peace. You know what? I said, my voice steady but firm. I'm done, Brendan. I'm done trying to keep this family together, trying to make everyone happy. I've spent too much of my life doing that. From now on, I'm putting myself first. If you can't respect that, then maybe we need to rethink our relationship. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, but he didn't respond. And when he finally did, it was in a tone that was more resigned than angry. Fine, Emma, he said. Do whatever you want. I hung up the phone, the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. I had done what I needed to do. I had stood up for myself, and I wasn't going to let Brendan take control of my life anymore. I wasn't going to let him ruin my happiness, my relationship, and my future. But as I sat there, I realized something. This wasn't just about Brendan. It wasn't just about my wedding or my family. It was about me learning to take control of my life, to stop letting others dictate my worth. It was about finding my voice, even if it meant confronting the people I loved the most. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.